Alright, so today we are looking at this 98 Toyota Tacoma. It's the 2.4 liter two-wheel drive. We're doing the front bearings and bearing seal. As you can see, I'm pretty much already halfway through. Already cleaned out the wheel hub. If you're trying to figure out how to take it apart, I mean, kind of just do these steps backwards. Obviously not clean it though, but when you put it back on, you want to make sure the hub is completely cleaned out. Make sure all the old grease is out of it. And when you're pretty sure you got all of it, go ahead and spray like a little bit of brake cleaner into the inside of the hub. Just make sure you didn't miss anything and clean up maybe any film or little pieces left by the paper towel you're using. So also make sure not to get the brake cleaner in your eye. It hurts like holy hell. While we wait for that to dry, go ahead and take the old races for the bearings and clean them off, because you're going to use them to put the new races in. Secondly, if you are replacing your bearings, make sure you replace the races. If not, it can cause some problems later down the road. And also make sure to replace the rear bearing seal. I actually had a hard time trying to find this part. Ended up having to go to the Toyota dealership to actually get it. And on the diagram, it is the seal that sits right behind the inner bearing. And the reason for cleaning these off is you don't want to get any of the old grease onto the new bearings, or maybe any debris or dirt or anything that got stuck onto the old races. You want to make sure that the inner wheel hub is completely clean, because you don't want to get anything in those bearings. Alright, so those are all clean. That's dry. Alright, and I have the luxury of already having my bearings packed. I use the bearing packer at work, but if you're hand packing them, just get a glob of grease right here, bottom of your hand, get the bearings, and just push down and keep going into it until you see the grease come up to the top of the rollers, and do that all the way around the bearing. And then when you finish that, you can wipe the outside and the inside of the bearing with some grease, just to make sure that they're all greased up and ready to go. Yeah, these already greased them before I started this project. I'm gonna do my best to keep these gloves somewhat clean before I have to put the bearings in. So what you want to do is you want to put the race in the exact same way it came out. Actually, you know what? Take some, just a little dab of grease, and kind of rub it on the inside of where the race is going to go. Kind of helps it set in there properly. It makes it a little bit easier going in. Not too much, you don't want it to get pushed all around, but just enough to kind of get it in there easier. So now you want to take the old race, place it right on top. Get a small hammer. A dead blow works best, but I forgot mine at work. Then you want to hit all around your race until it starts to evenly go down, and you want to make sure it goes in there evenly, otherwise it could get stuck, and you don't want it to get stuck. That sucks. There we go. Sometimes it's a little bit hard to get them to go in straight at first, but once you get it, it kind of takes over from there. And if you're new to this and you want to make sure it's all the way in, once you get the old race to pretty much line up with this outside ridge of the hub, then it's all the way in there. And you'll be able to hear the sound difference it makes when it's all the way in there. So now we have, get a flashlight on that. Alright, so now we have the inner race in there. About to switch it over and put in the race in front. Again, take a little bit of grease and kind of run it on the inside. And if you are watching this video to see how to take them off, I will pretty much show you that, but in reverse, I guess. Putting it back on, and I'll kind of explain how to get it off there and what's the easiest way to get it off. There's a random spider on my truck. Yeah, definitely want to make sure that these things stay cleaned. If you plan on packing your bearings before working on the vehicle, definitely make sure to put them in a Ziploc bag or wrap them in some kind of a secure deal, just to make sure that they don't get contaminated or any other stuff gets on them. And pretty much the way they go in there, it kind of gets confusing sometimes. The part that has the flat back, that's the side you want it to go in first, because it's supposed to sit up against that back wall of the hub. And make sure it seats all the way. Pretty much what we did to the inner race, we're going to do to the outer race. Use the old one. For some reason this one's harder to get it going in there, so you gotta have a little bit more patience with it. if you are trying to take these out. What works best is in between the wheel hub, there's cutouts. Perfect size just to fit a flathead screwdriver in there. Make sure you hit the race, and only the race. Try not to hit the wheel hub. And all you do is you kind of just angle it like this, and you just hit it with the hammer, and just go around it multiple times until it finally pops off. Actually, I believe I'm going to have to do this to get this secondary race out. So I'll be able to show you how to get it out of there. Alright, so that should be a hole in there. Now to get this race out. You pretty much just keep doing that until it can come out. So I accidentally messed up and put the race in the wrong way, this top one, so I can't get the groove I did on the other one to get it to pop out. So I just have to pry at it for a little bit. Actually, I'll just have to take this one out. I just have to knock this one out and then flip the race, put it back in. It's almost there. So pretty much I just showed you how to take out a race. It's almost there. There it goes. So definitely, I guess, remember to put it in this way so it sticks out above the other one. And then now you flip it over and you catch this groove on the secondary one, and you just only need to hit it about maybe twice, and it pops it out pretty far, and then you just kind of treat it like a can opener. Sometimes it does need a little bit extra help, so just and oops. There you go. Now, you definitely want to make sure that it is flat up against both walls, and it clearly is. Okay. Now you want to get a paper towel and clean out the inside right here. Just flipping it around all that time, get stuff up in it. You don't want anything to contaminate these bearings. Alright. And then you're going to want to definitely have a flat piece of metal. Anything works, honestly. Just like that. And we're going to start with the inner bearing. But first, we're going to want to clean off this bolt that you take off of the spindle. And make sure that's clean, because once you put this inner bearing on, you're going to want to have everything ready to go back on. Try and keep it as clean as you can. Also, you're going to want to have the seal for the back of the inner bearing ready to go. So you can just put that on real quick. It kind of helps to clean everything, especially the hubcap. And then you're going to keep this little ring that you take off of the outer bearing ready, because the outer bearing doesn't quite sit in like the inner one does. The outer bearing tends to fall out, so once you put this cap on it, you have to put your thumbs up on this cap to keep it on there, so that way it doesn't fall off when you put it back on the spindle. Typically this job is not too complicated, but for the first time, some people might struggle with it. But typically that's okay, because first time doing something, you're going to take your time so we remember how to do it. So now we're going to take our inner bearing, kind of get this ready. And the way it goes in is it kind of has a cone shape, just like this. And what you're going to want to do is drop it in exactly like this. Just set it in. And now that it's set in there, take a little bit of grease and you just run it around the back side, a little bit on the inside. Make sure everything's all nice and greased up. Second important thing, it's really nice to wear gloves, especially when doing this. So next you're going to get your seal. Some people call it a wheel seal, I guess. And has a gold plate. Let's see. That gold ring right around the outside. This is what's going to go facing up. So you're going to want to have gold up, silver on the inside. you might not get yours from the Toyota dealership. So if you get your seal from AutoZone, it looks a little bit different. Has a indentation, but in this case it would go flat part facing outwards, this part going in, so it kind of holds the bearing. I got both seals. I'm gonna see which one will work better. I'm gonna go with the Toyota. It just looks a little bit better put together. And then you take your flat object and you just put it on top, and then and you want to make sure it's kind of flushed with it. And then we're gonna go ahead and, before we flip it over, lay down a little paper towel to keep anything from getting inside the bearing. And then flip that on over. Grab your outer bearing. And it's going to be the same thing. The flat part is going to be facing you. I'll show you in a second. Should go in just like this. You drop it in. Alright, so take a little bit of grease, go around the top, inside, kind of make sure it's all good to go. Here's where it kind of gets tricky, but not really. So this ring, turn off this light for a second. Okay, that doesn't really help at all. Alright, so this ring has an indentation down here, as you can see. What this does is it matches up with the spindle, and you just want it to be able to glide on just like that. So whenever you lay it on top of your bearing, you want that edge to be right about here. So you just want to place it on just like that, and then when you're putting it back on there, put your two thumbs to hold it, because the second you get it on the spindle, get it in that groove, it's going to want to pop off, and you just have to push it on back. Next that goes on is this bolt. And you just want to, you don't really have to tighten it, you just want to get it pretty snug on there with your hands. So I always, because your hands are going to be greasy and slippery, I always try to get a paper towel and just kind of turn it as much as I can with that, kind of clean it off a little bit too. Next is going to be this little cap. Now unfortunately I forgot to pick up a cotter key at work, so I'm going to have to reuse the old one. Don't recommend doing this, kind of a safety deal. But there's a hole that goes right through the spindle housing, and you just want to get your cotter key and just put it in like that. And then what you're going to want to do here, I'll do it and then I'll show you, is get one part of it, the longer piece, after you trim it, and you're going to want to fold this and get it to go right in front of the spindle. And the second part, you're going to want it to go right over that little nut and into one of the grooves, so that way it keeps that cap from spinning. So I'm going to show you. So you got this piece right here, and you got that top one right there. And that's how you want it to sit. Next thing you're going to do is you're going to take your little hubcap, like that, and kind of wipe it out just a little bit. So I'm going to have to apologize. I'm half awake right now. The other side went a lot more smoother, but I forgot to put the rotor on. It's not a big deal, but all you gotta do is just take out the cotter key, that little nut, make sure the bearing stays in, and then just put those 6 screws in. So I'm just gonna set that stuff down real quick. Lay a paper towel down for the bearings. I do apologize. I know this video is gonna be confusing and long, but it's been a long day. Put the nut over here, and all you're gonna want to do, again, put 2 thumbs on top of, just like that. Okay. Now we're gonna want to take this, get these bolts to line up just like that, and definitely gonna want to clean off your rotor after doing this. So if you're new to this and you're trying to guess how much brake cleaner to kind of get, I think 3 cans if you don't overuse it. So you want to get those started just so that way it grabs the plate evenly, and then I recommend getting an impact drill or a wrench. Impact works better on because when you're trying to wrench it, it tends to try to move the actual plate. And you just want to do a little bit of a star pattern. And then make sure those are good on there. And you're going to want to, again, put 2 thumbs on top of that little cap to keep the bearing to stay in. Set it on back in there. And now again, get your nut. Make sure your nut's on there nice and tight. Secondly, get your cap. Put that on. Cotter key. There we go. And again, bend this one back over it. And then get this one to go in between the cap. Kind of just like that. Paper towel and wipe down anything that might have gotten dirty on it. That's good to put your cap back on. You definitely don't want to hit this too hard and dent it on up, but just put a nice easy taps around it. Make sure it's on there nice and tight. just try to clean up as I go for the most part. Now what you're going to want to do is, since you have your rotor back on and all this is put back together, you want to get a paper towel and some brake cleaner. Make sure you have a little dish below it. And you're just going to want to kind of thoroughly clean it, because you just let it all over the floor. And because this has ridges and you definitely don't want this stuff getting in your eye, I recommend wearing goggles. So now I find it best to just get a paper towel, put it up there, and just spin it with your fingers, and then kind of put the paper towel. Try not to let your gloves or fingers touch it, otherwise it just gets the rotor dirty again. And just like that. Now you're going to want to do the back side. Helps if you just kind of find like a spot and you just put your hand up to the back side of the rotor and just gently let the rotor spin across the paper towel, so that way it cleans the back surface. And then flip the paper towel, just like that. And now you should be all ready to put your caliper back on, which I conveniently tied up to the upper control arm. And best way to do this is make sure your pads are all the way outward, and you just kind of want to eye it and let it slide on just like that. 2 caliber bolts. I always find it best if you try to bolt in the top caliber or top bolt first, just that way you kind of let gravity do its thing and let the bottom of the caliper fall down, and then all you have to do is just kind of wiggle it around a little bit to find that other hole. Just like that. Now, last week I inevitably changed my brakes on my rotors and my brake pads and my bearings, but I did not have the right tools to replace the races and the bearing seal or wheel seal, whatever you want to call it. And so that's why I'm doing it this week. Surprisingly, there are not that many YouTube videos on how to fix a 98 Tacoma bearings, and so I figured I'd start making videos, especially because on this truck, this is my truck, I've replaced all the brake lines, redone the whole suspension, replaced all the steering components, got a new rack and pinion, got new tie rods, ball joints, control arms, replaced the radiator, master cylinder. I've done my differential fluid, I've dropped my oil pan, I've dropped my transmission oil pan to replace the transmission filter and oil pan gasket. Done the valve cover, spark plug tube seals, rewired my distributor and spark plugs. trying to think what else I've done to this one. Put in aftermarket headlights and tail lights. Have had to remove the fender a couple times. To catch y'all up, I thought it would be awesome to take this 2-wheel drive truck out to Galveston and to San Luis Pass. I don't know if y'all have heard of that, and I thought it'd be a good idea to, well, because it's a 2-wheel drive truck, I thought it would be smart to go as fast as I could to the sand salt where I wouldn't get stuck. So I ended up hitting the sand dune at about maybe 40 miles an hour. My buddies behind me said I launched this little truck into the air to where they could actually see the space in between my tires and the ground. That's always nice. And you can see where my truck took off and where it landed. I might actually post pictures on it later. But so yeah. And I'll tell you what, this little truck's a trooper because it made it home still. And it drove like that for about a month. And then after that month, I snapped a ball joint. But the only thing that broke when I hit that sand dune was my sway bar clamp. The clamp to my sway bar got so much force to it, it bended the steel clamp and broke the bolt and bended it all the way upward. So driving home was a little fun, but I mean, still made it there. Yeah, so that gave me the chance to rebuild everything in this truck, and since then it's been fine. I replaced the bearings about 2 years ago, but it was about time to replace my rotors because the old ones got warped. So I swapped these out for some high carbon and some Duralast Max brake pads, and yeah, so that's why it was about time to swap everything out. And now that the caliper is back on, I definitely recommend you spin it a couple times, make sure nothing's grabbing it or anything. So that's definitely good. Next, you just want to get everything out of the way. Wheel your tire in, and kind of just, I always find it helpful to try and get on the first lug nut. The light fell. Sorry it got dark, but pretty sure I know how to put a tire back on. So you're definitely also going to want to have a torque bar somewhere handy, and pull up the torque specs if you want to be all specific. I just have 2-foot torque bar that I use, and I can kind of tell whenever it's as tight as it needs to be, so that always helps. I use the impact. This isn't really a powerful one, but I use it to kind of set the tire in. And that's pretty much it. Yeah. Once your tire gets back on, you're done.